It is the morning of September 26, 2003. Joel Miller is celebrating his 36th birthday with a breakfast made by his beloved daughter, Sarah. His brother Tommy joins them and says he's secured them a job that pays more money. Joel insists on working on it with Tommy, much to Sarah's chagrin, as she'd rather celebrate her dad's birthday. Joel and Tommy promise and assure Sarah that they would be done by 9 p.m. that night, and that they would get a cake to celebrate Joel's birthday. Their work ends up, however, taking longer than expected, and Joel comes home late without a cake. Sarah gives him his watch that she herself had fixed, and a copy of the Curtiss and Viper 2 that she'd borrowed from the Adlers. Sarah falls asleep and Joel is watching the film as Tommy phones him, saying that he's been arrested at the bar. Joel is disappointed but agrees to bail him out as he doesn't want his brother to spend the weekend in jail. All the while, chaos ensues in the city because of a pandemic that has broken out. People are infected by a deadly parasitic fungal disease called the cordyceps, and it is a disease that hijacks the brains of its hosts and turns humans into animals that have the sole purpose of infecting as many people as possible. In the opening scene of the show, a group of scientists discuss the fungus and reassure the people that such a fungus could never survive in a human body because of our high internal temperature. Joel and Tommy drive Sarah out of the city but are confronted with societal collapse and the ensuing carnage around them. They slowly realize that their world may never be the same again. Seeing the blockade around them, they head for the river to try and get around to the highway. As they're driving, an airliner crashes behind them, overturning their ride. Joel carries the injured Sarah and they're separated from Tommy in a congested alleyway, so they agree to regroup at the river. Soon after, Joel is confronted by a soldier and shoots him under orders to limit the outbreak, but it strikes Sarah instead. Before Joel is shot again, Tommy reappears and kills the soldier, but Sarah is overcome by her mortal wound and dies in Joel's arms. We fast forward 20 years and the US is now a country made up of cities called quarantine zones, and areas outside of them are pretty much wastelands. The people living in these zones serve the remnants of the US military group Federal Disaster Response Agency, or FEDRA, and their rule is that of tyranny and oppression. Joel now lives in the Boston QZ, and he and his partner in crime Tess work together as smugglers who trade goods in and out of FEDRA-controlled territories for ration cards, guns, and other supplies. Joel hasn't heard from Tommy in weeks, so he searches for anyone that has information on his whereabouts, and he learns that his brother is in Wyoming, so he plans to drive west to check on his status. Sometime before 2010, Tommy had left Joel and Tess because of their brutal disposition, and he wasn't so fond of their work as smugglers. Tommy found a home in the revolutionary group called the Fireflies. The Fireflies are a group of rebels that oppose FEDRA and look to restore past government to normality by developing a cure for the cordyceps infection. FEDRA view them as a terrorist group, and the two have had violent clashes, even leading to the complete annihilation of QZ zones like the one in Pittsburgh in 2017. These two groups are the big forces that play in this story. Back to the present, Joel realizes that he needs a car battery if he wants to drive his way to Wyoming. So Tess finds him one, but she's tricked by a fellow smuggler, Robert, and she comes to find that he's already sold the car battery to the Fireflies. Joel plans to get his get back against Robert, so he and Tess scour the city and enter an abandoned building, and that's where they meet Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies. It turns out Robert had tried to sell a fake battery to Marlene, so the two got in a shootout, and ultimately Robert ended up getting killed, while Marlene got shot in the abdomen. Marlene's partner Kim is also injured in the process. Seeing their current state, Marlene offers up a trade to Joel and says she'll give up all of her supplies if he manages to smuggle Ellie out of the QZ. Joel is hesitant to trust the Fireflies because he thinks they manipulated his brother to join their group, but ultimately Tess convinces him to follow through. We find out that the reason Ellie is such an important commodity to the Fireflies is because she's immune to the cordyceps infection. Her mother had been bitten during childbirth, which led to her having a natural immunity against the fungus. Marlene thinks Ellie is the best hope for humanity's survival and a chance at making the vaccine to fight off the infection. So Joel, Ellie, and Tess navigate their way out of the city and encounter many infected along the way. One specific type of the infected being a clicker, which is the third stage in the progression of the fungus. And as a result of its prolonged exposure, these clickers rely on echolocation as their sight is covered. Joel is hesitant to trust her immunity, so he keeps a close eye on her all night. When they reach the Fireflies' safe house, they realize that all of the people there are dead. They see that the Fireflies had been infected and killed each other in the process. And this is when Tess reveals to them that she had also gotten bit back in the tussle with the clickers. Joel kills one remaining infected, and his gunshot attracts the horde of infected to their base. Tess manages to convince Joel of taking Ellie to Bill and Frank's place in Lincoln as a means to find a way west to the Fireflies' headquarters. In a heroic display, Tess sacrifices herself and blows herself up along with the infected, while Joel and Ellie escape outside. On their way to Bill and Frank, Joel speaks to Ellie about the horrible things Fedra has done to the civilians that they're meant to protect. When they arrive at Bill's place, they find the home deserted and a letter for Joel, which states Bill and Frank had decided to take their own lives and left everything they had for Joel to use. We get a flashback of Bill and Frank's relationship and see how they found each other. Bill had always distrusted the government, so he decided to hide in his home, barricading himself for years until he met Frank. We also see how Joel and Tess met with Bill and Frank and came to be trade partners. This episode reveals the true theme of the series, being human relationships and connections, and how it is sustained in a post-apocalyptic world. In the garage, Joel finds that Bill had left him a car which he can finally use to get to his brother in Wyoming. Joel and Ellie gain a better understanding of each other en route as they reach Kansas City. Along the way, they had to make many stops to siphon gas and rest overnight, during which Joel revealed how his brother left him to join the Fireflies. In Kansas City, a group of raiders shoot at Joel and Ellie, causing them to crash. Joel kills a few of the raiders, but one of them sneaks behind him and gets him pinned down. Ellie pulls out a gun that she had secretly taken from Bill's place and shoots the raider. Joel and Ellie escape, but the raider leader Kathleen soon finds out about their presence. We see that Kathleen's group is also a resistance group in KC who fought and overthrew the Federa's rule over the city. Joel and Ellie rest in a tall building, and in a moment of complacency, they get ambushed by Henry and Sam. It turns out that Henry and Sam are also hiding from the resistance group, so they make a deal with Joel and promise them that they will get him out of the city. We find out that Henry has sold out Kathleen's brother to the Fedra for medications that saved Sam's life. Henry's escape route turns out to be clicker-infested underground tunnels which they traverse and find an abandoned classroom that they use to rest for a while. Once they're out in the suburbs, they're shot by a sniper. So Joel flanks his way around to the sniper, kills him, and takes his gun. Joel overhears on the radio that the resistance group is headed their way. He takes his rifle and shoots at the incoming truck driver, making the truck crash into a house and explode. Kathleen confronts Henry, and as she points her gun at him, a horde of infected emerges out of the hole the truck had left. We see a bloater for the first time, which is the third step of the cordyceps infection, where the human body is entirely covered with fungal armor. Joel, Ellie, Henry, and Sam escape using the horde as a distraction and hide in an abandoned motel. With some deliberation, Joel extends an invite to Henry and Sam to join them on a trip to see his brother in Wyoming. Tragically, however, Sam reveals to Ellie that he had been bitten, and in an attempt to stop him from turning, she rubs her blood on him, but it is to no avail. In the morning, Sam turns, and Henry is forced to shoot him, and shoots himself after. Joel and Ellie bury the bodies before getting back on the road to Wyoming. Along their way, Joel and Ellie share each other's dream of living in a peaceful ranch and becoming an astronaut flying to space. Joel teaches her how to stand guard, but doesn't allow her to be the one doing it, as he fears for her safety. They cross the river of death and are met by patrolmen on horseback who use their dog to test if they have been infected. Surprisingly, the dog fails to detect Ellie's bite, and they're taken to the Jackson community. Joel reunites with Tommy and remarks on his new wonderful life and the job that his wife Maria had done. Tommy tells Joel about the Fireflies base at Colorado, but that he cannot go with him as his wife is pregnant, so he must be there for her. That night, Joel remembers of Sarah, and he thinks of Ellie, and decides he must finish his mission through. So he heads to Colorado with Ellie, with the supplies provided by Tommy. Joel and Ellie bond on their way to Colorado, but when they reach the university, they realize it is empty, and that the Fireflies had moved to another base in Utah. Joel and Ellie are attacked by raiders, and Joel is stabbed in the process. Ellie is forced to nurture Joel over a span of months and tries to provide for him as he recovers. One day, Ellie meets David and his group, and she is kidnapped and locked away in an act of vengeance. It turns out David's men were the ones that attacked Joel and Ellie in Colorado. One of his men searches for Joel, but Joel is healed to the point where he can move, which is enough for him to ambush and kill the raider. David tries to justify himself to Ellie as being the man forced to make the hard decisions, and likens himself to her, saying how they're both violent and express their love through violence. Ellie is disgusted and breaks one of his fingers, which prompts David and James to force her on the table and cut her up and feed her to the group. But Ellie reveals that she's been infected, and she uses their confused state to grab the knife and kill Jamie. Ellie escapes into a steakhouse, and she engages in a deadly, fiery game of assassination, hiding from David. And it ultimately ends by Ellie repeatedly hacking the butcher knife into David's face. Joel reunites with Ellie and reassures her that she's okay. The two continue on their journey to Salt Lake City, where they find a wild giraffe in an abandoned building. There's actually a herd of giraffes walking on the field, and this allows the two a moment of peace and reconciliation. And Joel tells Ellie that they don't have to enter the hospital, and that they could live the simpler life at Jackson with his brother Tommy. But Ellie tells him that their journey can't have been for nothing. There must be a meaning and purpose behind all of their trauma and hardship. So they march on. The Fireflies discover Joel and knock him out and take Ellie and him hostage. Joel wakes up in the hospital with Marlene, but Ellie is nowhere to be seen. Marlene tells him that Ellie was rescued too, but that they'll need her blood for the cure. She then says that Ellie is being prepped for a surgery that will remove the cordyceps from her body. But since the infection has taken over her brain, she will die in the process. Joel implores for them to find another candidate, but Marlene says there is no other option, and she escorts him out with her 2 soldiers. Over the course of the season, Joel has developed a familial bond with Ellie, so he realizes that he can't lose another daughter again. So he kills the 2 guards, takes a gun, and eliminates everyone inside of the building, including the doctors. Joel carries her down the elevator, where Marlene confronts him at gunpoint. Marlene says that Ellie would rather choose to die for the vaccine than to die hapless with Joel by her side, unable to protect her because of his deteriorating state. Joel knows this, and as much as it pains him, he rejects her claim. The next shot we see is Joel driving away from the hospital. Moments later, we see Ellie in the backseat, and she questions Joel about what actually happened back in the hospital. Joel lies and says that there were more people like Ellie, but the doctors had given up on a cure. What really happened was that he shot Marlene so she couldn't ever come back for Ellie again. Ellie is troubled by his response, and once they get back to Wyoming, Ellie asks him to swear if everything he's told her about the Fireflies is true. And to that, he says yes. And that ends the first season of The Last of Us.